I'm here to talk about Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham, where she covers her experience working as Lorelai, playing that part. And when it comes to the part of Lorelai Gilmore, I honestly cannot picture anyone else playing that role. And what I found so interesting about this particular book is that right off the bat, it sounded like it was written by Lorelai. And I know it was written by Lauren, and I don't want to be one of those people that sees an actor and just sees them as that character, because I know that Lauren and Lorelai are very different, but the lighthearted tone, the comedic nature that Lorelai has, Lauren has that as well. And all of that is in this book. And it threw me off for quite a while. So it was weird getting into it, because I think I was expecting more of a very straightforward and dry memoir, but I'm also not used to reading celebrity memoirs. And I decided to read this book because of another channel called Why the Book Wins, where they cover books. And if you love books, highly recommend that channel. The person put this book at the top of their tier list, so I thought I should read it. And it's a very easy read. I'm gonna have a ton of spoilers, and I'm gonna focus on Gilmore Girls, but I'll give a warning. So just in case you wanna read the book first, you could stop watching as soon as I give the spoilers. With respect to this book, Lauren decided to write it because of A Year in the Life. While she was working on A Year in the Life, that made her reflect on her original time working as Lorelai. And so she rewatched the entire show. She watched all 7 seasons, and she has not watched herself in 15 years. But for this book, she decided to rewatch the show, and she gave all of her impressions for every single season. She did an interview on Ellen where she said that she published a collection of essays, and that's what this book really feels like. It feels like a collection of essays rather than a chronological description of her life. So there are different chapters covering different elements such as fashion, diet, roles for women in the industry, her jobs, her personal life. And while generally they're in chronological order, they are definitely separate, and they could be read in isolation. And like I've said, super easy to read. It's 200 pages, so that was also surprising. I read it twice, actually, so you could definitely take it to the beach. If you take the audiobook, and I think I would recommend the audiobook, because it's really designed to be a conversation. She's not telling you things, she's trying to talk to you. And the audiobook should probably take maybe 4 hours to listen to the whole thing, and it's much better to actually have her voice telling you her story of her life. Something else that I thought was very interesting is that in the acknowledgement section, she wrote, "I'm also thankful to the accidental writing school I got to attend thanks to years spent speaking her word," referring to Amy Sherman Palladino. And I guess that might be part of the reason why this book kind of sounds like Lorelai. And not to say that Lauren had to learn from others, because Lauren herself is a talented writer. She wrote all of this herself. She did not have a ghostwriter. She has a English degree from Barnard College, and she's written other books before. But I would imagine that actors probably learn how to write scripts and learn how to write because they're forced to read so often. And good writers come from being good readers. So I guess it's not surprising that Lauren has picked up some of that fun writing style from all the things that she's read. And again, not to diminish the fact that she already has this talent within her, because she herself is a talented writer. So would I recommend this book before I get into the spoilers? Well, I have to say, I think it depends, because if you love the character of Lorelai and if you love the actress Lauren Graham, then I think you would like this book, because you get to learn a lot about her life and a lot about her experience and get more of a feel for who she is as a person. If you're just mostly interested in the show and I guess you're not a big fan of the character, then maybe this book will be more of a toss-up. But either way, I think it would take you maybe a day to read. It's super easy. So spoilers. And again, most of this is going to be spoilers. And I'm going to focus on Gilmore Girls, but I have to mention her life and all the things I found really interesting. So like I've said, she has a variety of different chapters. Her chapter on the diet industry I thought was interesting because it's written in a comedic tone in a very lighthearted, friendly way, but the things that she talks about, it feels like there's an undertone of, I would say, frustration or showing the critique of Hollywood and the pressure that's put on actors to stay that thin. She goes through all the diets that she heard about and how kind of it's all ridiculous, and that, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, you all need basic advice. And it, for me, felt like she was really talking about all the things that she was exposed to and had to go through in order to stayed the form that she is in order to have the roles that she has. She has a very sweet chapter on her personal life, on dating. She mentions Matthew Perry, and she says that Matthew Perry was a longtime friend who she almost but not exactly dated. So they definitely had a very long friendship together, and the way that she talks about him is very sweet. And I guess it's very bittersweet now considering what has happened. And she, of course, focuses on her relationship with Peter Krause and how she met him. And I loved that ending. I thought it was just so beautiful, the way that she talked about it. I just found out today that apparently they're not together anymore, which is very sad. They were together, I think, for over 12 years. But I really liked that chapter. I thought it was very sweet. Her chapter on jobs was also interesting. So Lauren worked a lot before she became a full-time actress. She had a whole variety of jobs. She was a cocktail waitress at a comedy club where Ray Romano performed. She was a waitress at restaurants. She ushered off Broadway. She stockpiled books at the Columbia Library. She worked at Barney's. She had to dress up as a mascot for a game once. She worked for a catering company, so kind of similar to Lorelai. And it kind of goes to show that the story of Lauren is really the story of, I guess, kind of the standard starving actor in New York City who works many jobs by day and then goes to auditions by night and tries to make it. But because she's so talented, of course, she made it. She also went to graduate school, and she has an MFA in acting from Southern Methodist University. So that's really cool. She also worked on Broadway for Guys and Dolls. When it comes to her personal life, the things that I thought were interesting is just her chronology of she was born in Hawaii, and then she moved to Japan because her mother was a missionary, so her mom spoke fluent Japanese. Her parents separated, and with her father, she moved to the Virgin Islands where they lived on a houseboat, and then they moved to Southampton, New York, where she stayed until as she went off to college. So now to Gilmore Girls. I will give a description of all the things that stood out to me and I thought were very interesting that she talked about in her experience. When the show was picked up, they got the worst possible time slot, which I didn't know. So they got 8 p.m. on Thursdays, which in 2000, that was NBC's biggest rating night. They were competing with Friends, which was the #1 show. So when Lauren found that out, she was told that, well, you guys had a good run. There's no way you could compete with Friends, but as we all know, the show was picked up and it continued on because it was just so beloved by so many people. Lauren talks very positively about everybody on this show. And I guess that's one of those things where you would expect her to be very warm. And I can't imagine her just talking down about anyone there, but she really did focus on the people that she connected with. She connected with Kelly Bishop a lot. And I can kind of see that because on screen they have a lot of chemistry. Even though their characters butt heads, they play off each other really well. And Kelly Bishop really became her on-screen mom. They would go to lunches together. They would split snacks in the middle of the night. Her and Alexis got along really well. And it's really sweet how, because Alexis was just so new, it was her first job, that Lauren would link arms with her and she would walk with Alexis so that Alexis would be able to hit her mark. And something else is that Lauren, instead of being exhausted by the really lengthy scripts, so as we all know, Gilmore Girls was known for the fact that their scripts were double in length. For an hour-long show, most scripts are 55 pages, but for Gilmore Girls, they were about 85. But that did not exhaust Lauren. She said that she was running on adrenaline the whole time, that because of those dense scripts and the energy that she had to have, she was sleeping 4 hours a night. She was running at the WB gym during lunches, and she was just on this adrenaline high the whole time. She said that Luke was not supposed to be a love interest, but because everyone liked Scott Patterson so much that they turned him into a love interest. And the summer before season 2, Lauren dyed her hair red. So she says that if anyone's looking closely, you could see that there are red undertones in season 2 because she had to re-dye her hair black after turning it red. And in season 2, everyone also started to talk much faster. She said that in the beginning it was primarily her character that had to keep up with that speed, but then as the show progressed, everyone had to go at that pace. And so the script got even longer. In season 3, the actor who plays Alex, Billy Burke, is actually one of Lauren's friends. And we see one of Lauren's family members on the show. So at Rory's graduation, you could see that Lauren's sister is actually in the background. She's sitting behind Rory in Paris. Her cousin Tim also appeared on the show. He had a quick appearance where he walked through the Dragonfly Inn. In the episode, The Festival of Living Lights, something that I feel like we should appreciate, or what I started to appreciate, is the fact that Lauren had to put on hair and makeup, that makeup, for a week. So it wasn't just a day of heavy intensive makeup, but the good thing is that the makeup artist won an Emmy for that episode. In season 4, Lauren talked about how she's friends with Chris Eagman, who plays Jason, so another person who she had a really good rapport with. In season 6, Lauren talked about how she was very sad about the separation between Lorelai and Rory, and that during that time, she hated the fact that her character of Lorelai was holding a grudge. And she actually spoke to Amy Sherman Palladino about it because she felt like it was kind of out of character for Lorelai. And Amy told her that it was just necessary for the character's development for that to happen. But Lauren was very upset. She missed working with Alexis. And her favorite episode in that season is where her and Alexis reunite. So where Lorelai and Rory reunite together, she says that the hug between them was real. And I thought that was very sweet. When they were filming the last episode of season 6, Lauren had no idea that Amy and Dan were not coming back to the show. So the WB and UPN went through a merger, and they survived that merger, and Gilmore Girls went on to CW, but Amy and Dan had some tough negotiations, and they ended their contract. When they were in season 7, it was Lauren and Alexis who were at the end of their contract, and so they spent their time renegotiating. And actually, they were renegotiating their contract all throughout season 7. So as they were filming, they had no idea if they would continue with the show. And that lasted until the very last episode. So in that very last episode, no one knew that it was over. And that's something that I always think about when I watch a last episode of a show, of how all that emotion that's coming out, for me, feels kind of real, because you see that the actors are also saying goodbye to their experience. But in this case, it felt very abrupt, because as they were filming, it could have ended, but it could have not. And it was a very long day. It was 21 hours. And they ended the show without having any idea whether or not it was over. Lauren and Alexis were the only ones who were officially contacted and told that it was over. Ed Herman found out from one of his local video stores, from a clerk at that store, that the show has ended. So he didn't get a formal ending. But Lauren said that that ending was a kind of a blessing at the same time, because it made people want to go back and tie up loose ends. So all the actors wanted to go back because the show didn't feel finished for them. They never got to say their final goodbye. So it kind of gave the chance for a revival, because if it really was over, maybe the actors would have felt that they had nothing else to say. They didn't want to get that final feeling of saying goodbye to that chapter in their life. And Lauren also talks a lot about a year in the life, because she was working on this book and she actually wrote down her impressions while she was working on a year in her life. So you get some of her diary entries, so to speak, while she was working on the show. When the idea of a reboot was proposed, it was a while back. So it was back in 2014 that Amy told Lauren that, hey, we're gonna do a reboot. But as soon as it was picked up by Netflix, everything moved really fast. So they had 2 months to rebuild all the sets, because the set that Gilmore Girls was filmed on was taken down. So they had to rebuild the entire thing. They had a very limited time frame in which to film, because the lot was going to be used by others. So they had a very restrictive time frame and then a very limited time to start to build everything. And at that point, no actors were officially attached to the reboot. So it was a bit of a time crunch. And the sets, according to Lauren, felt a little bit eerie, because although everyone did the best that they could to reconstruct everything, everything was just slightly off. No one took exact measurements, and Lauren could see and could feel when things were slightly bigger and slightly smaller, so she noticed that difference. And something else that I thought was so incredibly sweet, and I felt the emotion, was when Lauren talked about how emotional she was when she was filming the reboot. And I know that for a lot of us, and for me included, the reboot kind of felt a little bit lackluster. People didn't like it as much, and some people might have felt a little disappointed. But after reading this, even though I might not agree with maybe all the plot points in the reboot, I appreciate so much what this revival meant for the actors, because Lauren was in essence crying the whole time. And I think I was crying with her when I was reading it, because you could just feel that it meant so much to her to go back to this character, to go back to working with the people that she cares about. Lauren had trouble getting through some basic lines, which was really cute when she was doing her rehearsal with Chris Eagman, again, the man who plays Jason. She said that she couldn't get through the rehearsal. Something else that was super cute is that when Lauren was doing Gilmore Girls, she asked Amy if she could write her the longest monologue ever written. And Amy did not do that for the original Gilmore Girls, but she did do that for Lauren for the revival. So the monologue that Lauren has where she talks about Richard is the super long monologue that Amy wrote for her. And you could tell I can't believe that Lauren did that. And she kept that emotion up the entire time. So that was a good challenge for Lauren, and I thought that was really sweet. So overall, I would say it's a very comfortable, easy book to read. Learned a lot about Lauren. I have so much more respect for Lauren now. She's very multi-talented. So that's my take on Talking as Fast as I Can. I hope I covered as much as I could. I'm not used to being on camera, so thank you. I really appreciate you guys.